What does it actually mean to rise in life when you feel like you have no one? Not the Instagram version where you flex your independence and pretend loneliness made you stronger. I'm talking about the real unglamorous truth of waking up in a world where you feel fundamentally alone, where the people around you don't see you, don't get you, and wouldn't know how to catch you if you fell. There's a particular weight to this kind of aloneness that most people never talk about honestly. It's not the dramatic loneliness of a breakup or losing someone to death. It's quieter than that and somehow heavier. It's looking around your life and realizing that if everything collapsed tomorrow, you'd be handling it by yourself. Again, maybe you have family. Maybe you have friends, colleagues, a contact list full of names. But when you're lying awake at 3 in the morning with that heavy feeling in your chest, you know the truth. There's no one you can call, no one who would truly understand, no one who has the capacity to hold what you're actually going through. And here's what makes it worse. You might be the strong one for everyone else. The person people come to when they're falling apart, the listener, the problem solver, the one who always seems to have it together. But when it's your turn to need someone, you don't even know where to start. Because somewhere along the way, you became the person who holds space for others, but never learned how to ask for that space yourself. If something in you just whispered, "That's exactly how I feel," then what I'm about to share might shift something fundamental in how you see this entire situation. Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds in human psychology, spent his life studying what happens in the hidden parts of the psyche. And he discovered something that might completely reframe your loneliness. He found that when we feel most alone, when it seems like we have no one, life is often doing something we don't recognize. It's not punishing us. It's not proving we're unlovable or broken. Life is actually pushing us toward the most important relationship we will ever have. The relationship with our own self. Not the self we perform for the world. Not the role we play to survive. The deeper self, what Jung called the center of our psychological and spiritual being. The part of us that knows things our conscious mind doesn't. The part that's trying to guide us toward wholeness even when the path feels lonely and impossible. Jung wrote about something he called individuation. It's the process of becoming who you actually are, beneath all the layers of what you were taught to be, what people needed you to be, what you learned to be in order to survive. And sometimes that process requires a kind of aloneness, not because you're being abandoned, but because you're being called inward to discover resources you didn't know existed. Before we go deeper, I want to create a small moment of connection here. Go to the comments and just write the city you're watching from. Just your city. London, Lagos, New York, Manila, wherever you are in the world right now. Because one of the most powerful things about feeling alone is realizing how many people across the entire planet know exactly what this feels like. You're going to scroll through those comments and see city after city, and something in you will relax just a little. You're not the only one walking through this. Now here's where Jung's perspective becomes genuinely useful instead of just philosophical. He believed life has a deep intelligence, not in a mystical, everything happens for a reason way that dismisses real pain, but in the sense that our psyche is constantly trying to move us toward balance, toward truth, toward integration of all the parts we've split off or abandoned. When you feel like you have no one, what's often happening beneath the surface is this: you've grown beyond the people and patterns that once surrounded you. You've evolved past relationships that were built on you playing a certain role. You've outgrown environments where you had to shrink your truth to fit in. And now you're in this uncomfortable in-between space where the old connections don't work anymore, but the new ones haven't formed yet. That in-between is brutal. It feels like failure, like you did something wrong, like you're too much or not enough. But from a depth psychology perspective, it's actually evidence that your psyche is reorganizing at a fundamental level. The foundations that worked when you were becoming yourself are being dismantled so you can build something real. So the question isn't really, how do you rise when you have no one? The question is, how do you become the kind of person who can hold yourself through this transition? How do you stop abandoning the one person who will be with you for your entire life, which is you? And how do you start building from a foundation that can't be shaken by whether other people show up or not? That's what this is really about. Not motivation, not pretending to be strong. Actual psychological and spiritual transformation that changes how you move through the world. Let's begin. The first thing you need to understand is what loneliness actually is at its core. And this is where most people get it wrong. We think loneliness is about not having people around, but that's not it. You can be lonely in a marriage. You can be lonely in a family. You can be lonely in a crowded room full of friends. Real loneliness is the gap between your inner world and your outer life. It's when who you truly are has no place to land. When your real thoughts and feelings and struggles have nowhere to be seen, heard, or met. That's the loneliness that cuts deep. Not the absence of bodies nearby, but the absence of recognition. The feeling that nobody really knows you, and if they did, you're not sure they'd stay. When you say, I feel like I have no one, what you might actually be saying is this: I have no one who sees the real me. No one I can be fully honest with. No one I trust to hold my inner world without judgment or fixing or disappearing. And here's where Jung would gently turn the mirror back on you. If there's no one outside you holding space for your inner world, the first question isn't, why doesn't anyone care? The first question is, have I been holding space for it myself, or have I been doing to myself exactly what I'm upset others are doing? This isn't about blame. It's about pattern recognition, because many of us learned often very young to treat ourselves the way we were treated. If your fear was dismissed, you learned to dismiss it. If your sadness was minimized, you learned to tell yourself to get over it. If your needs were inconvenient, you learned to stop having them, or at least stop expressing them. So you develop these internal voices that sound like, stop being so sensitive. Other people have real problems. You're being dramatic. Suck it up. Nobody wants to hear about this. Who do you think you are? You become your own worst critic, your own emotional abandoner. And then you wonder why you feel so alone. When the truth is, you've been practicing emotional self-abandonment for years. Jung talked about something called shadow work, which is the process of becoming conscious of the parts of ourselves we've rejected, denied, or hidden away. And one of the biggest shadow aspects for people who feel chronically alone is this: you've rejected your own vulnerability. You've exiled the part of you that has needs, that gets tired, that doesn't have all the answers, that sometimes just needs to be held without having to earn it. Rising in life when you feel like you have, no one starts here. With a decision that's quiet and unglamorous and won't show up on anyone's feed. The decision is this: I will not abandon myself anymore, even if the people around me don't know how to show up for me yet. What does that actually look like in practice? It's not abstract or mystical. It shows up in small daily choices that seem almost too simple to matter. But they do matter. Psychologically, they matter more than almost anything else. It's choosing to tell yourself the truth about how you're actually feeling instead of numbing out or distracting. It's making a plan for your day so you don't drift into hopelessness and call it rest. It's going to bed at a decent time instead of scrolling until 3 in the morning because you're afraid of the quiet, It's cooking a real meal for yourself even when no one's there to eat with you, even when it feels pointless. These things seem small, but every single time you take your own life seriously, you're sending a signal inward. You're saying, my existence matters. My energy matters. My body, my thoughts, my feelings matter. Even if no one else is treating me that way right now, I will. That's not self-help fluff. That's genuine psychological reprinting. It's the work of becoming from the inside the supportive presence you didn't consistently have on the outside. And over time, that internal foundation becomes unshakable in a way that external validation never could be. Now let's talk about another painful piece of this. You might feel like you have no one because you spent years, maybe decades, being someone for everyone else. You were the strong one, the helper, the fixer, the emotional center that everyone else leaned on. And you were good at it. People came to you because they knew you'd listen, you'd care, you'd help them figure it out. But then life got hard for you. And suddenly you looked around and thought, where is everyone now that I need someone? How is it that I showed up for so many people, and now I'm struggling, and it feels like nobody even notices? That realization can breed real bitterness. And honestly, the bitterness makes sense. It feels unfair. It is unfair in a lot of ways. But here's what Jung would invite you to explore with curiosity instead of just anger. Were you ever really given permission to have needs in those relationships? Did you actually show vulnerability regularly? Or did you unconsciously build every connection around the identity of being the one who helps, not the one who needs help? This isn't your fault. It's adaptation. Many sensitive, emotionally intelligent people learn early that they're valued for what they give, not for who they are. So you lean into the giving. You become indispensable. You become the person people can rely on. And there's real value in that. But here's the hidden cost. People start seeing you as a role instead of a full human being. They think you're fine. They assume you've got it handled. They don't check in because in their mind, you're the strong one who doesn't need checking in on. So when your life collapses, they're genuinely surprised. They didn't know. Because you trained them not to know by never letting them see you need anything. Rising when you feel you have no one means slowly, carefully stepping out of being a role and into being a person. It means practicing in very small ways what you were never taught. Asking, not begging, not over-explaining, not apologizing for existing. Just small, clear, honest reaching out. Hey, I'm having a really hard day. Could I talk for a few minutes? I'm feeling really low this week. Could we go for a walk? I could use some company tonight. Are you free? And yes, sometimes people will be busy. Sometimes they won't respond the way you hoped. That's going to hurt. But Jung's goal here isn't perfection. It's consciousness. You're not waiting for the perfect friend to magically appear and save you. You're becoming the kind of person who's able to be supported. You're learning the skill of letting yourself be seen in need. And that is terrifying for someone who survived by being low maintenance and high capacity. But it's also the only way forward. Because rising alone doesn't mean you never reach out. It means you're willing to reach out while also knowing that you are your own foundation if they don't answer. You're building something inside yourself that doesn't collapse when someone doesn't text back. That doesn't crumble when someone can't show up. That stays steady because it's rooted in your relationship with yourself first and your connections with others second. Take a second right now and go to the comments. Write one small way you're choosing to rise this week, even if you feel like you have no one. And add your city so you can see how many people around the world are on this same healing journey. Now we need to talk about something that can slowly kill your soul if you don't address it. It's the quiet question that creeps in when you feel alone for too long. What's the point? Who am I even doing this for? If I rise or fall, who's going to notice? Who's going to care? That question is dangerous. Not because it's wrong to ask it, but because if you don't have a real answer, you'll drift. You'll start going through the motions. You'll perform the routines of life without any fire behind them. And that's a special kind of death while you're still breathing. Jung believed that your life is not a random accident. You're not here just to survive, pay bills, keep other people happy, and then die. There's something deeper happening. Your psyche has its own intelligence, its own direction, its own story trying to unfold. He called this process individuation, at the journey of becoming who you actually are at the deepest level. And here's the part that matters when you feel alone. Your individuation, your becoming doesn't require an audience. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't even need to be understood by the people around you. It's happening whether anyone witnesses it or not. Rising when you feel like you have no one means beginning to live for something bigger than approval and company. It means finding personal meaning, not the kind of meaning someone hands you in a sermon or a book. The kind of meaning you discover by asking yourself a brave question. If no one clapped, if no one posted about me, if no one fully understood what I'm going through, what kind of life would still feel worthwhile to me? Maybe it's a life of creativity, writing, painting, building, making music, telling stories, teaching what you've learned. Maybe it's a life of service, helping other people heal from what you had to survive, supporting people who are where you once were. Maybe it's a life of learning, studying psychology, philosophy, science history, feeding your mind in ways no one around you ever encouraged. Or maybe it's something quieter. A garden, a small, peaceful home, a simple routine, a life where you're not performing for anyone, just living with integrity and presence. Peace instead of applause. When you start living toward your own meaning, something shifts inside. Jung would say you're aligning with the self, that deeper center of your being. And that alignment doesn't remove the loneliness. You might still wish you had more people. You might still feel the ache. But your suffering has a direction now. You're not just hurting, you're transforming. Think about it this way. When you're suffering without meaning, it's like being lost in a dark forest with no path. Every direction feels equally hopeless. But when your suffering has meaning, when it's in service of something you genuinely care about, it's like having a compass. You're still in the dark forest. It's still hard. But you know which direction you're walking, and that changes everything about how you experience the difficulty. Jung himself went through a period of profound isolation and psychological crisis. He called it his confrontation with the unconscious. For years, he felt completely alone in his exploration of the psyche. His colleagues didn't understand. His mentor, Freud, had turned against him. He was mapping territory in human consciousness that no one around him could see. But he kept going because the work itself mattered to him. The meaning was internal, not external. And what he discovered during that lonely period became the foundation for everything he contributed to understanding the human psyche. The concepts of archetypes, the collective unconscious individuation, all of it emerged from a time when he felt he had no one who understood what he was doing. He had to trust his own inner guidance when there was no external validation. You might be in your own version of that right now, exploring territory in your own consciousness that the people around you can't see or don't value. Developing aspects of yourself that don't make sense to your family or old friends. Moving toward a version of life that looks weird or impractical from the outside. That's not evidence that you're wrong. It might be evidence that you're finally listening to something real inside you instead of just following the script everyone else is following. So how do you actually build this sense of meaning when you're starting from a place of feeling emotionally alone? You start exactly where you are, with the next right thing you can do. Not the perfect thing, not the impressive thing, just the next honest step toward the life you actually want. You choose one thing to commit to for the next 30 days. Something that serves your future self, not your old survival patterns. It could be writing 1 page every day, walking for 20 minutes, reading 10 pages of something that feeds you, practicing a skill you want to develop, recording voice notes to process your thoughts, learning something that genuinely fascinates you. The point is not to achieve massive success overnight. The point is to prove to yourself gently day after day, I can show up for my own life. Even when no one's watching, even when no one claps, even when I feel like I have no one, I can still build something real. And that builds a particular kind of strength. Not the fake strength of pretending you're fine. The real strength of self-trust, self-respect. The kind of inner strength that Jung talked about as essential for true personal development. Because when you respect yourself, everything changes. You make different choices. You don't stay in places where you're disrespected. You don't beg for crumbs of attention where your soul is starving. You don't throw yourself at people who don't care whether you rise or fall. You become more careful with your energy, more discerning about who gets access to you, and your loneliness starts to shift. It's less about, no one wants me. It becomes more like, I haven't found enough people yet who can actually meet me where I am. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. It's you realizing that not all connection is good connection, and being alone is better than being with people who make you feel more alone. Here's something most people don't realize until they've done this work. The quality of your relationships is directly connected to the quality of your relationship with yourself. When you don't respect yourself, you'll tolerate disrespect from others. When you don't trust yourself, you'll give your power away to anyone who seems confident. When you don't value your own time and energy, you'll let people waste it. But when you start doing the daily work of self-respect, when you start treating your own life like it matters, something interesting happens. You become allergic to situations that require you to abandon yourself. A conversation that used to feel normal now feels off. A dynamic that you used to tolerate now feels intolerable. Not because you're being judgmental, but because your system has recalibrated to a different standard. You start noticing when someone talks over you, and instead of staying quiet, you speak up. You notice when someone makes plans that completely disregard your needs, and instead of going along with it, you say, "Saboneno, that doesn't work for me." You notice when you're giving 90% and receiving 10, and instead of pretending it's fine, you pull back your energy. This isn't game playing. This isn't manipulation. This is you finally having enough self-respect to stop participating in relationships that require you to be less than you are. And yes, some people won't like it. Some people will say, you've changed, you're not as easygoing, you're not as fun. And they'll be right. You have changed. You're not easygoing with your own boundaries anymore. You're not fun for people who are having fun at your expense. But the people who are actually good for you, they'll respect it. They'll appreciate knowing where you stand. They'll match your honesty with their own. And slowly, you'll find yourself in a completely different quality of relationship than you've ever experienced before. From there, something Jung wrote about extensively starts to happen. He called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidences, events that seem to align with your inner state in ways that feel almost orchestrated. It's not magic. It's not the universe rewarding you for good behavior. It's more like this: when you start aligning with yourself, even in small, private ways, the outer world slowly reorganizes to reflect that alignment. You stumble across a book that says exactly what you've been feeling but couldn't name. You hear a podcast that puts language to your internal experience. You meet one person, just one, who finally feels like, oh, you're my kind of human. You receive opportunities that match the direction you've been moving internally. Jung noticed this pattern throughout his life and in his clinical work. When people started doing genuine inner work, when they stopped running from themselves and started moving toward integration, then their external circumstances would shift in ways that seemed too perfectly timed to be random. He didn't think it was the universe magically arranging things. He thought it was something deeper about how consciousness and reality interact. When you change your internal state, you literally see the world differently. Things that were always there suddenly become visible to you because you're paying attention differently. Opportunities that existed before suddenly register because you're ready for them. People who were around you all along suddenly feel different because you're showing up differently. It's like when you decide you want a certain kind of car and suddenly you see that car everywhere. The cars were always on the road, but your attention wasn't oriented toward them. Now it is. Same with life. When you align with yourself, with your actual values and direction, your attention naturally orients toward things that match that alignment. And you start noticing connections, resources, people, and possibilities you couldn't see before. But there's also something more mysterious happening. Jung believed in a kind of intelligence in the psyche that transcends what we can explain mechanistically. Call it the self, call it the soul, call it whatever fits your understanding. But there's something in you that knows where you need to go and what you need to encounter. And when you start listening to it, when you start following that inner guidance, instead of just doing what you think you should do, life starts cooperating in unexpected ways. You send an email you weren't planning to send, and it leads somewhere meaningful. You take a different route home and run into exactly the right person. You pick up a book randomly, and it has the exact answer you were looking for. These aren't miracles. They're synchronicities, meaningful alignments between your inner state and outer circumstances. These things don't happen all at once. You might go through a long season where it still feels like you have no one. But the more consistently you choose not to abandon yourself, the more naturally you'll start gravitating toward people who are doing the same work. And they'll recognize something in you. Not because you're performing strength, but because you've done the real work of becoming whole. Now there's a hard truth we need to address directly. Sometimes you feel like you have no one because the people currently in your life are simply not capable of meeting you at the depth you're living at. This isn't about judging them. They're not bad people. They're just not built for the kind of conversations, honesty, and emotional depth you need. If you're someone who thinks deeply about life, who processes emotions instead of avoiding them, who's interested in healing and growth and understanding yourself at a fundamental level, you're operating in what Jung called a different layer of consciousness. You're engaged in depth psychology and spiritual awakening, in the kind of self-improvement that goes beyond surface fixes. And if the people around you aren't on that path, they literally won't understand what you're talking about. They won't get why you need to process things. They won't understand why you can't just move on or stay busy or stop overthinking. Not because they're cruel, but because they haven't done that inner work themselves. Rising in life when you feel alone sometimes means accepting that some of your rising will be away from certain people and patterns. Not with superiority, not with resentment, just with clear recognition. I cannot keep making myself smaller to stay in spaces that have no room for who I'm becoming. This brings us to one of the most challenging parts of the entire journey. The in-between space. That brutal season where you don't fully belong where you were anymore, but you're not yet connected to where you're going. You've outgrown old relationships, but new ones haven't formed. You've left behind old versions of yourself, but you're still figuring out who you're becoming. That in-between space is sacred, but it's also excruciating, because you're alone in a very specific way. You're alone with your growth, alone with your awareness, alone with a vision of life that the people around you can't see yet. But here's what happens in that space if you don't run from it. You discover something crucial. You discover that you actually can sit with yourself. You can survive the ache. You can build pieces of the life you want without having a full support system cheering you on. and that discovery stays with you forever. It becomes a foundation that no one can shake. So if you're in that space right now, if you're listening to this and feeling that specific ache in your chest, I want to speak directly to you. You're allowed to be tired of this. You're allowed to cry about it. You're allowed to say out loud, I really wish I had more support. That vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But after you've cried, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, I want you to ask yourself one question. And I want you to answer it honestly. What would rising look like for me this week with the resources I actually have? Not in 10 years. Not when everything's perfect. Not when you finally meet your people or your person. This week. With your current life, your current limitations, your current level of support. What does rising look like? And I want to get really specific here because this is where a lot of people get stuck. They think rising has to be dramatic, quitting your job, ending relationships, moving to a new city, making some big, bold move. But that's not how real transformation works most of the time. Real transformation is quieter. It's in the daily choices that nobody sees. It's in the moments when you're alone with yourself and you choose differently than you used to. Maybe rising for you this week looks like finally unfollowing the accounts that make you feel less than. You know the ones. The accounts that make you feel like you're behind in life, like everyone else has it figured out, like your struggle means you're failing. Unfollow them. Not with anger, just with clarity. This isn't serving where I'm going. Maybe it's putting your phone down after 11 at night and actually letting your body rest because you've been staying up until 3 in the morning, scrolling through nothing, numbing yourself, avoiding the quiet. But the quiet is where the real work happens. The quiet is where you actually hear what you need. So tonight, you put the phone down. You sit with the quiet. You let yourself feel whatever comes up without immediately distracting from it. Maybe rising looks like writing one honest page about how your life really feels without filtering it. Not for anyone else to read, just for you. The truth about how tired you are, how lonely it's been, how hard you've been trying with no one noticing, how scared you are that it won't get better. Write it. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Because what's inside you in the dark has power over you. But what you bring into the light loses that power. Maybe it's finding one free resource that actually feeds the direction you want to go. One course, one lecture, one video, one book from the library, something that teaches you a skill you want, or explains something you're curious about, or helps you understand yourself better. Not consuming content to distract, consuming content to build. Maybe rising is taking a walk instead of letting your thoughts spiral through the same destructive loops again. Because you know what happens when you sit in the same spot thinking the same thoughts. Nothing changes. But when you move your body, something shifts. The thoughts start moving differently. New perspectives emerge. It's not about solving everything on one walk. It's about interrupting the pattern. Or maybe, and this might be the hardest one, rising looks like sending one message asking for a small bit of support even though your voice shakes when you type it. Hey, I'm not doing well. Can we talk? That's it. No essay, no explanation, no apologizing for needing something. Just honest, direct, vulnerable asking. And here's what you need to know about that. Most people won't know you're struggling unless you tell them. They're not mind readers. They're dealing with their own lives. So if you never ask, if you never let anyone know you need something, you're guaranteeing that you'll stay stuck in, I have no one. Because you're not giving anyone the opportunity to show up. Yes, some people won't respond well. Some people will be uncomfortable with your vulnerability. Some people will disappoint you. That's real. But some people might surprise you. Some people might have been waiting for you to let them in. You won't know until you try. Rising when you feel like you have no one is not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It doesn't look good on social media. It's subtle. It's consistent. It's stubborn. It's you refusing to collapse into the story that says, because I'm alone right now, my life cannot move forward. Your life can move forward in quiet ways, in private ways, in ways nobody sees. And often those are the most powerful transformations. Because by the time people notice and say, wow, you've really changed, you'll know the truth. You rose in the dark when no one was watching, when no one was checking in, when no one knew how much effort it took just to keep going. But you did it anyway. That's what Jung would call earned strength, not the kind you get from a quote on Instagram, the kind you forge in the nights when it's just you, your thoughts, your pain, and a choice. The choice to not give up on yourself. Let me tell you what that looks like over time. You start making different decisions. Small ones at first. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't really listening. You stop performing strength when what you need is rest. You stop pretending everything's fine when it's not. You start protecting your energy like it's precious, because it is. You start being honest about your limits. You start disappointing people who were only around because you had no boundaries. And some people will leave. Some people will be confused. Some people will say you've changed, and they won't mean it as a compliment. But the people who were meant to walk with you into this next chapter, they'll show up differently. They'll respect your boundaries. They'll match your honesty. They'll be capable of depth, and you won't have to shrink to be around them. Jung talked about archetypes, these universal patterns that show up in human psychology across all cultures. And one of the archetypes that's relevant here is the archetype of the orphan who becomes the sovereign. The one who starts with nothing, no support, no inheritance, no safety net. And through their own journey becomes whole. Not rescued, not saved by someone else. Made whole through their own conscious work. That's the journey you're on when you feel like you have no one. You're not waiting to be saved. You're learning to hold yourself, to trust yourself, to build a life that's not dependent on whether other people show up or not. And as you do that inner work, as you practice showing up for yourself day after day, something Jung wrote about starts happening. Your psyche begins to integrate. The parts of you that were split off, the vulnerability you rejected, the needs you denied, the emotions you suppressed, they start coming back home. Not in a dramatic breakdown, in a gentle returning. This is what Jung meant by individuation. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming undivided, whole, gathering up all the parts of yourself you had to exile to survive and welcoming them back. The part that feels deeply, the part that needs rest, the part that has desires and dreams, the part that gets scared, the part that wants to be seen and loved. For so long, you might have thought you had to keep those parts hidden to be acceptable, to be strong, to be valuable, But what Jung discovered is that real strength doesn't come from cutting off parts of yourself. Real strength comes from integrating them, owning all of who you are, the light and the shadow, the competent and the vulnerable, the independent and the one who needs connection. When you stop rejecting parts of yourself, when you stop requiring yourself to only show up in acceptable ways, something profound happens. You become more whole, more real, more solid. You're not performing different versions of yourself for different people anymore. You're not switching between the strong you and the scared you depending on who's watching. You're just you. All of it. Integrated. And that feeling of being grounded in yourself, of being at home in your own being, that's what makes it possible to rise when you feel like you have no one. Because you're not actually alone anymore. You're with yourself, all of yourself. And that changes everything. You start feeling more whole, more solid, less fragmented. You're not performing different versions of yourself for different people anymore. You're just you. And that feeling of being grounded in yourself, that's what Jung meant by individuation. You're becoming undivided, whole, real. So what does all of this add up to? What's the actual transformation that happens when you stop abandoning yourself and start rising even when you feel like you have no one? You become someone fundamentally different. Not perfect, not without struggles, but different in a way that changes everything. You become someone who doesn't need external validation to know you're moving in the right direction. You develop an internal compass, a sense of knowing what's right for you even when other people don't understand it, even when it looks weird from the outside. You become someone who can hold your own emotional world. You're not looking for someone to fix you or complete you or make you feel okay. You can sit with your own fear, sadness, anger, joy, without needing to immediately offload it onto someone else. This is a massive shift. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid feeling their feelings. They stay busy. They stay distracted. They stay in relationships that don't work because being with the wrong person feels safer than being alone with themselves. But you've done something different. You've learned to be present with your own inner experience. You've learned that feelings don't kill you. They move through you if you let them. And because you can hold your own emotions, you stop needing other people to regulate them for you. You're not texting someone in a panic every time you feel anxious. You're not calling someone to talk you off a ledge every time you feel sad. You're not performing your pain to get attention. You can be with yourself in the hard moments, and you know you'll come out the other side. That doesn't mean you never reach out. It means you reach out from a place of choice, not desperation. You reach out because you want connection, not because you'll fall apart without it. And people can feel that difference. They can tell when someone is clinging versus when someone is genuinely inviting them into connection. You become someone who knows how to be alone without feeling lonely, because you've built a relationship with yourself that's real. You actually like your own company. You have conversations with yourself that are generative instead of destructive. You can be in silence without it feeling like punishment. Think about what that actually means. You can sit in a quiet room and not immediately need to fill it with noise. You can eat a meal by yourself and not feel pathetic. You can spend a weekend alone and it doesn't feel like evidence that something's wrong with you. You've cultivated an internal richness that doesn't depend on constant external stimulation. You read, you think, you create, you rest, you process. You dream about your future, you reflect on your past without getting stuck there. You have a whole inner world that's fascinating to you. And because of that, you're no longer desperate for someone to save you from your own company. And here's what's powerful about that. When you're not desperate for connection, when you're not trying to fill a void through other people, you start attracting different relationships. You're no longer pulling in people who sense your neediness and exploit it. You're drawing in people who recognize your wholeness and want to add to it, not take from it. The energy you put out is completely different. Before you might have been radiating, "Please see me. Please validate me. Please prove I'm worth something." And the people who showed up were the ones who wanted someone to need them or who saw your need as an opportunity to use you. But now, you're radiating something else. "I'm good on my own. I'd enjoy your company if you're genuinely interested in mutual connection. But I'm not available for games or half-hearted effort or relationships that require me to shrink." And that energy attracts people who are doing their own work. People who are whole themselves and looking for genuine connection, not codependency. You start building relationships based on mutual respect instead of codependency. Based on genuine connection instead of performing for each other. Based on both people being whole individuals who choose to walk together, not two half people trying to complete each other. Jung believed this is the point of human development, not to find your other half, not to merge with someone and lose yourself, but to become whole on your own and then connect with other whole people from that place of fullness. He had a concept he called the conjunctio, the sacred marriage, but it wasn't primarily about romance. It was about the integration of opposites within yourself, the masculine and feminine aspects of your psyche, the light and shadow, the conscious and unconscious. When you do that inner integration work, when you become whole within yourself, then your external relationships naturally become healthier because you're not using them to fill holes in your own psyche. You're not looking for someone to be the strong one because you won't own your own strength. You're not looking for someone to be emotional because you've cut off your own emotions. You're not looking for someone to give you permission to live because you won't give it to yourself. You've integrated those aspects. You own your strength and your vulnerability, your logic and your emotion, your drive and your rest. And when you show up in relationships from that integrated place, everything changes. You're not playing roles anymore. You're not the strong one or the weak one, the giver or the taker, the parent or the child. You're just two whole people choosing to share life together in whatever form that takes. Friendship, partnership, collaboration, whatever feels true. And when you look back on this season, the season where you felt like you had no one, you won't feel fake gratitude for the pain. You won't say, "I'm so glad that happened." Pain is still pain. Loneliness still hurts. But you will have real respect for the version of you who kept going, who rose anyway, who had every reason to quit and didn't. You'll recognize that this season, as brutal as it was, forced you to develop something you wouldn't have developed any other way. Self-reliance that's not brittle, self-trust that's not arrogant, inner strength that's not performance. Those things only get built in the dark. They only get forged when you have no choice but to hold yourself. There's a particular kind of strength that can only come from going through something hard alone, not the surface strength of looking tough or acting like you don't care. The deep strength of knowing you can survive your own darkness, knowing you can sit with your own pain and not be destroyed by it, knowing you can face uncertainty without someone holding your hand through every step. That strength becomes part of your foundation. It's not something someone can take from you or give to you. It's not dependent on circumstances. It's woven into who you are now. You know what you're made of because you tested it. You know you can trust yourself because you've proven it in the hardest possible way. And here's what that means for the rest of your life. When hard things happen, and they will, you won't fall apart the same way. You'll have a reference point. I got through that season when I felt like I had no one. I can get through this. Not in a way that minimizes new pain, but in a way that gives you confidence in your own resilience. You stop being afraid of being alone because you know you can handle it. You stop being afraid of people leaving because you know you won't abandon yourself. You stop being afraid of your own emotions because you've learned to be present with them. Those fears that used to run your life, they lose their power. And the part of you that pressed play on this video today, the part that's still looking for answers, still trying to figure out how to move forward, that's the part Jung would say is being guided by something deeper, by the self, by the intelligence of your own psyche that knows you're meant for more than this stuck, lonely place you're in right now. Trust that part. Feed that part. Listen when it tells you to rest. Listen when it tells you to push. Listen when it tells you someone isn't good for you, even if being alone feels scarier. That inner voice knows things your conscious mind doesn't. It's been guiding you all along. You just haven't been taught to listen to it. Your story is not over. Not even close. This chapter, the one where you feel like you have no one, it's not the end. It's the beginning of something you can't see yet. It's the disruption before the emergence, the breakdown before the breakthrough, the loneliness before the coming home to yourself. And when you do come home to yourself, when you finally build that unshakable foundation inside, you'll realize something that changes everything. You were never actually alone. Because the one person who matters most, the one person who will be with you from your first breath to your last, has been there the entire time. You just forgot how to see yourself, how to value yourself, how to show up for yourself. Now you're remembering. And that changes everything. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go to the comments and tell me what rising looks like for you this week. Just one small thing, one choice you're going to make that honors the person you're becoming instead of the person you've been. And write your city next to it so you can see in real time how many people all over the world are walking this same path. Different cities, different lives, same journey back to themselves. And if this spoke to something true inside, you do me one favor. Share this with someone who might be in their own quiet battle right now. Someone who feels like they have no one. Because maybe this message is exactly what they need to hear today. That they're not broken, they're not behind. They're right on time for their own transformation. You may feel like you have no one right now, but you have yourself. And if you're willing to stop abandoning that person, if you're willing to show up for yourself the way you've shown up for everyone else, you'll discover something profound. You are enough. You always were. You just needed to remember. The part of you that won't let you give up, that keeps searching for answers, that refuses to stay down, that's not weakness. That's your soul fighting for you. That's the deeper intelligence Jung talked about, pulling you toward wholeness, even when the path is lonely. Trust it, honor it, follow it. Because you're not rising despite being alone. You're rising because of it. This loneliness is teaching you something no relationship ever could. How to be whole on your own. How to trust yourself. How to build a life that's real. And that foundation will hold you through everything that's coming. The part of you doing this work right now, the part choosing to rise, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when no one sees it, that's the strongest part of you. That's the part that will carry you into the life you're meant to live. Keep going. Your story is just beginning.